Welcome to WP Coffee Talk. Thank you to all of our sponsors, and especially to our espresso level sponsors, Helix Managed WordPress Hosting, for both their sponsorship and for hosting our site, and to Expander Digital for both their sponsorship and providing SEO services to us. Now enjoy the episode. Welcome to WP Coffee Talk, where I get to talk to amazing people all over the world. And today my guest is, it's probably very late at night there, my guest is coming to me from Italy, Francesca Marano. And Francesca, you work with SiteGround, is that correct?
Yes, yes. Hi, thank you for having me. It is
Oh,
11 here in Italy. So I put a lot of concealer under my
you look
eye.
beautiful.
Thank you. And I'm the WordPress Community Manager at SiteGround, the international web hosting company.
And you do a lot more than that. We're going to talk about some of the other things you've been involved in this year as well, because I want to give you a lot of opportunity. I don't call it bragging because I think bragging has a negative connotation, but we're going to celebrate some of your accomplishments this year as well. So
I like bragging too, so I'm fine with
yeah, well,
bragging.
okay, good. Well, I'm going to celebrate you. You go ahead and brag.
No, I'm kidding. Actually, I'm extremely shy, and when I was a kid, one of the nicknames I had for was "We'll never make it."
Oh no.
So, like whatever I had to tackle in my life, it was like, "We'll never make it."
Well, you proved them wrong.
So I learned to compensate for this by bragging.
There you go.
But
I love
inside,
it.
I think I'll never make it anyway.
Yeah, well, I think you've made it, and I know you'll continue to do so.
Thank
But
you. That's nice.
tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
So, as you said, I come from Italy, and as my accent says, I think very clearly, I'm from a town called Torino, which is in the northwest next to the Alps. I'm 45. I have a son, Matteo, who's super nice and keeps me very busy. I am in my fourth or fifth career change in my life, more or less. I started out, my first job was in the airline industries. I worked for different airlines. Then I moved on to become an executive assistant. And then I worked as an administrative director. And then around this time, I found WordPress because I wanted to blog about my son,
Oh,
like
cool.
all new moms do, right?
Yeah.
Like we are the only ones that ever produced a child. So we have to tell everyone. And so obviously I started a blog, and and then I started freelancing because what do you know? Other mothers also want to tell everyone
Right.
about their kids. So I got this niche in Italy of Italian ladies that wanted to reinvent their career after they had children. And so we really empathized. And the only difference was that I was able to make websites for them. But basically, my customers were me
There you go. And
without the WordPress knowledge. And that's also how I met SiteGround at some point over this time.
that's wonderful. Well, when your customer is you connect well with them. So it's
Yeah.
a perfect connection for sure. Now, you say you're in like your fourth career. I'm a little bit older than you, so I'm 51. And I think that women in their 40s and 50s now, we have had quite a few career changes because when we were first starting out, we didn't have the opportunities that we have
Yeah.
now. And so it's been fun to kind of, I was an executive, I was a secretary, and then I was an executive secretary, and then I was working in colleges and things like that. And now then I was freelance for a while, just like you.
Yeah.
And now I work for Give for impress.org. And so, it's been kind of fun to look back over my career and see the same kinds of patterns that you're talking about.
Yeah, I think it's more common. So I also had this great example, which is my mom. My mom was one of the first female developers in Italy back in the 70s when I was just born. And before doing that, she was a secretary. And then she moved into a role where they asked them if they would want to do a programming course. And she was
Mhm.
like, sure, why not? And she did it. And she had her own company, and she was a system analyst and everything. And so she had this career in tech. And then at some point, she was really fed up with all of this. And someone asked her if she wanted to become the HR manager for this 200 people company. And she was like, I know nothing about HR management. And I was like, don't worry. And she was almost 60 when this happened.
Wow.
So, you
I
know,
love it.
I think it's also a good example that we're giving to to younger generations. So
That's
I'm
great.
glad we can do
Me
this.
too. So show me your mug. What mug are you drinking from today?
So this is great because I'm a massive Beyonce fan. Okay, like my bio everywhere, I think even on LinkedIn says that Beyonce is the answer, because I do believe that Beyonce has an answer for anything that will come up in our life. So it is I woke up like this, which if you don't know, it's a sentence, how do you say, from one of their songs, Flawless.
Okay.
Amazing song, but it's actually Simon's cat, which is a great character. Just go search for the videos on YouTube. Simon's cat is a cartoon about Simon, who's obviously a victim of his cat.
Okay.
Because the cat took over his life. So
gotcha. That's cute.
The cat woke up like this, but also and I roped my son into buying this for me last Christmas.
Perfect. And it looks like you're drinking tea.
Yeah, I am drinking tea. I'm not a heavy coffee drinker for an Italian. It's I really like tea. It's pucca herbs after dinner.
Perfect.
Or whatever. Also because caffeine at 11 is
not a good idea. Yeah.
Herbs and yeah.
Well, I selected a special mug today in your honor. Wonder Woman. And this is my biggest Wonder Woman mug because you are a big inspiration to me in our WordPress community. And this was a gift to me. I used to dog sit for a friend. And so I didn't want her to pay me because I was just being helpful. But so she would buy me Wonder Woman things because I love Wonder Woman. And so I went to dog sit and I went into the house and this mug was on the counter and a bottle of wine fits inside the mug. So she had given me a bottle of wine and the mug. And I was like, well, if the whole bottle fits in there, I have to drink it. Right?
I mean,
and I'm drinking turmeric tea. And I think the tag, it's a yogi tea. It has little words on it. And so this is descriptive of you as well. So this was, good happenstance or serendipity. It says, grace is kindness, compassion, and caring. And that made me think of you as well. So Wonder Woman, we're both Wonder Woman, right?
We are. I mean,
dynamos.
I would say that all the women that I know inside the WordPress community are. So maybe we should adopt that as our bat signal.
That's right. I love it. A bat signal. Let's do it. Only the W should be the WordPress W.
Yes. I'm sure Michelle Schulp can work on something.
Oh, she could. She's wonderful. So how did you get started with WordPress then? So you said a little bit before, but so was it the blogging? Was that the first thing?
Yes. So I started blogging about my son and my knitting and my life, whatever. And many, many, many years ago, I took an HTML class. And at some point, you know how it is, you want the comments to float left instead of right as the theme that you pick. Right. Or the links, I wanted them to be a different color. So I just started messing around directly in the CSS file through the admin. I know, but I mean,
we learn somewhere. You have to learn somewhere.
Someone told me, and I don't know if that's true. So Helen Husandi was behind this change that was made in the WP admin, that you get actually a warning when you go and touch that, but you also have syntax highlighted and stuff like that. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason why she was so passionate about it is because also she started by messing around with those files. I think most of the people in the WordPress
Yeah.
community that are now contributors started with that. So
Right.
I started messing around with that, and then that was a lot of fun. And moms that were reading my blog noticed those changes, and at some point someone asked me if I could do the same for her blog.
Mm-hmm.
So I started messing around with other people's blog.
I love it.
And that's how I started offering website services, by accident, basically.
That's wonderful. I love that. And it's funny because some of us just kind of fell into it like that. And I think that's, some people it was a very well thought out decision. And quite honestly, those are the younger people who studied it in
Yeah.
college, but those of us who had previous careers, it's like, wow, this is really cool. I think I could turn this into my life.
I actually remembered because at the time I was used to work with Dreamweaver. I never really had a career as a web designer, but I was studying it, and I was just playing around with at the time I was working for a company in Italy, and we had a website, and I was playing around with it and stuff like that. And I remember the first thing was like, why can I not change WordPress themes inside Dreamweaver? Like, that was my thinking at the time. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
realize that you could bypass the Dreamweaver phase, but that was my biggest concern at the beginning. Like, how do I put WordPress into Dreamweaver?
I love it.
Yeah.
When you see all the websites that you see, and I know that some of us see a lot of websites all the time, right?
Yeah.
What are some of the things what are some of the things that you think that we, as in the WordPress community, and as designers and developers, what do you think we need to focus more attention on in websites to make it better and stronger for the end user?
So I think one of the things that I know my clients overlooked all the time was strong content. So they would come up to me with beautiful designs that they saw around the web, and they would be like, "Let's do this." I'm like, "Sure, we can do that, but where's the content? What are you telling?" So at some point, for example, I made the decision to work only with people that already had a business plan and they knew what their business was going to be about, because otherwise, and I also enjoyed that part, but it was a lot of work coaching them through what should be the content in their website to reflect their vague business idea. so so I actually think that content, sadly, is very overlooked, especially by freelancers that someone convinced that they need to have an online presence. Someone's like, you got to have a website to sell your services. So they're like, all right, let's do this. And then,
And then it's pathetic.
I mean, where's the meat? you
Right.
know? So that's one thing that I think it's overlooked by clients.
Mm-hmm.
As WordPress for professionals, I think we should push for accessibility more.
Mm-hmm.
And the two things go together, actually,
They do.
because once you have a very good content that is semantic and not doesn't use things that shouldn't be used to do something as something else,
Right.
then your SEO is better, the accessibility is better. So it's all connected. So I
Mm-hmm.
think I would tell my clients to invest more into this, and I wish more agencies would invest more into accessibility.
Yep, I agree. Absolutely. And so one of the things I noticed last year, I was working on the communications and PR team for WordCamp US. And so I was writing a lot of content for the blog. And I was going back and proofing other people's content for the blog. And more than half of the images didn't even have alt text. And if we as a community who are the WordPress people that are putting these things out can't follow those own rules, then I think
Yeah.
we're really in trouble. So when I'm working with the team next year and leading the team next year on PR communications, I already put down a rule. Every image must have an alt text,
Yeah.
although otherwise it won't be approved, period,
Yeah. Yeah, and
So
it's such a small thing if you
it
think
is
about it. It's
so
like
small.
people spend hours picking the right image. Do you want to tell me that you cannot spend those 10 seconds?
Just labeling your images.
And the other thing is like, especially for small websites, for freelancers, they're very worried that this will cost a fortune. But luckily, there's plenty of accessibility ready website themes, just free, ready to be used. So, that's also a
Yeah,
thing that was
absolutely.
really, because that will make the first difference, and it
Hmm.
helps, and it's a small investment. So yeah, those are
Absolutely.
two things that I'm passionate about.
I agree with both of those for sure. When you look back over your WordPress journey, what's something you know now that you wish you had learned earlier to make life easier?
Do not offer to do something that you don't know yet how to do, because that education will cost you more than a year in an Ivy League.
It's so true.
I,
Uh,
so one of the one of the first websites, okay, so I get all these requests from other women doing websites, and it's up my league, it's good. I charge basically nothing. My first customer paid me more than I asked, because she was, and she put in the wire transfer like, you're an idiot, because I asked for like 100 euros to do something, and she sent me 200, and she's like, you're an idiot. All right. So, but I got a couple of years of experience doing this on a side, and then I decided to go full time. First customer asked me for an e-commerce, and I'm like, sure.
you sound like me. That was my first experience as well. I did not charge enough money either.
That was, I don't know. I think I spent 6 months on this, and yeah, no, don't do
Yeah,
that. If you
don't do
don't know,
that.
if you don't know how to do something, don't accept
Don't
the
do it.
job.
That's right. Or charge a
Unless
lot of
you,
money.
yeah, unless you really want to learn about that thing,
Right.
and then you're ready to invest. But do you really know how much it will take you to learn about that thing? I don't think so.
Very true.
That was a disaster, a
Oh, for
complete
sure.
disaster.
Wow. Well, you learned though, so that's good, I guess.
I never did
When
another e-commerce website again.
I don't blame you. They're not easy. They're really not easy. There's so much that
No,
goes into the shipping and everything else. Just a pain.
yeah.
You attend a lot of WordCamps and meetups and, all over the world and that kind of thing. So when you think back over all of the different meetups and WordCamps and WordPress events that you've been to, was there a moment that was truly inspirational, that was pivotal to you, and what was it?
Yes. So the Italian community basically didn't really exist up until 4.5 years ago. There were a lot of people using WordPress. WordPress was widely used in Italy. There were a lot of blogs talking about WordPress and tutorials and everything, but there were even some WordCamps, like some of the first WordCamps, I'm talking 2009,
Okay.
2010, were in Italy. Actually, the first WordCamp that was held in Milano, that I can never remember if it was 2008 or 9, Matt Mullenweg came, because that, there were so few around the world that it was just hopping around. But then they stopped.
Mhm.
So for about, I think, 3 years, there was nothing in Italy. There were 2 meetups that were just meeting once in a while. And then WordCamp Europe happened. It was in the second or third year, I can't remember. I didn't attend, but a bunch of Italians did attend, and they saw all the other communities, and they were like, we want this. So I don't know, I don't remember exactly how I got roped into I think a friend, I met someone who worked at Automatic, and it was like, why are you not organizing something? I was like, organizing what? So he said, oh, look at this, blah, blah, blah. And then, we started doing this in Torino, and then other cities followed. So we opened the Slack instance and started chatting, and we decided to organize a standalone contributor day. Now, bear in mind that basically 4 people in Italy have attended the contributor day beforehand, and probably 2 of them were not Italians or didn't live in Italy, whatever. So somehow we managed to organize this thing, and we actually managed to get 60 people to this thing.
Wow.
And we managed to get help from friends that worked at established companies that had culture of contribution. And, you know, like we never saw each other in person before. All of this was organized over Slack, and then we met in Milano and we just did it.
That's
And
wonderful.
that was like, if I have to say one moment of my life that was pivotal, is definitely that day, because, you know, it not just for me, by the way, for some of the most active contributors in Italy, for most of them, that was the starting point.
That's wonderful.
And it was so powerful. It was amazing. It was amazing. People just came, did their thing, and continued doing that thing, and we're still doing it 4 years after. And now we have almost 40 meetups in Italy. And Milano, Torino, Verona, and Bari happen every year, have been happening every year. Catania started this year, so we have between 5 and 7 WordCamps a year.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I that was just something else. But it just was so random, you know, it could have been a total disaster.
But it wasn't.
But it wasn't.
Which is always good. Always good.
Yes. So that was very important. And then the other thing that I think, not for me personally, but I think for the Italian community, so somehow also for me personally, it was the first WordCamp we put together in Torino the year after. Like 6 months after this was like, all right, now we're doing a WordCamp. No, actually, after this contributor day, we're like, now we're doing a WordCamp, of course.
Of course you would.
None of the people in the organizing team have ever been to a WordCamp.
Of course, because,
let's do it.
You know.
And Taco from Yoast came and gave a talk about starting a meetup in your city. And on the same day, like 4 cities applied to start a meetup. That's also a moment that I have very vivid in my mind, seeing people's eyes really lighting up and say,
yeah,
is that easy? We can do it. And that was also another moment that I really have very clear in my mind.
That's wonderful. Well, I know you also work at SiteGround, and I will tell you, so WP Coffee Talk is actually hosted elsewhere from one of our sponsors, but I have 3 SiteGround accounts myself. Yay. Because I never figured out, like, oh, I can combine them or whatever. So I have 3 separate accounts that I pay for at different points of the year. So it's a little bit nice because it's spread out a little bit.
All right, we can definitely do something about that.
We'll talk later about that. But I have always recommended SiteGround to people because, you know, so hosting is not true, right? So there's better hosting, there's worse hosting, but of the top level hosts, they're all very good.
Yeah.
What I love about SiteGround is that whenever I have a question, they are eager to help me solve it. Yeah. I am never a problem. I am never an inconvenience or annoying, you know. I get on the chat because then I can, like, have it sent to me later and I can refer back to it as opposed to a phone call, although I have called before. Everybody is just so wonderful and solves my problems. And sometimes they find the problem before I do and they tell me about it and then I can fix it. So, you know, it's just really, really good people. And the socks are pretty amazing as well. Everybody loves the socks.
Everyone loves the socks. SiteGround has an amazing company culture where helping each other and sharing knowledge is kind of like, we don't even have to tell people that's how we do it, because you just feel it. You get there and you see, you know, all the interactions and how people work and how we exchange information and how we cheer for each other, and then it's just like that. So I think that also attracts certain people also to work for the company, and it's just natural then that the support people are like that, because I mean, I don't think you want to be the odd one out.
No, for sure. Everybody wants to produce. But even when somebody says, I don't have the ability to solve this, let me send it to the developers who can help you.
Yeah.
And in some cultures you would think, oh great, it's going to be a week before I hear back. And then 15, 20 minutes later, they're already responding to you. No matter what time of day or night it is. It's amazing.
Yes, we have very strict procedures about this, and the time that it takes us to reply to, I say us, I never reply to a ticket. I would be horrible at that job because I don't really have a lot of patience. I have to.
It's like I say us about WP Coffee Talk, and it's just me, so I understand.
No, but like, I don't know how they do it. I think working support is really a call. I don't think that's a job that you can do for more than a few months if you're not really called upon helping people.
I agree. It's a passion that you develop, or that you're born with even.
And I remember when I was interviewing for the job, one of the things that I researched about the company was actually how many people were there for a long time. And I was so blown away by the number of people that work in support and that are now supervisor and have been there for over 5 years, some of them for 10 years. I was like, if they manage to retain that talent, this is a good company to work for.
Yeah. For sure. Absolutely. So that's wonderful. If I can transition a little bit, and I'm trying to be cautious of our time because I don't want to take too much of your time this evening. It's already going on midnight, but just spend a couple of minutes talking about what it was. I know I'm asking you to do the impossible in a couple of minutes, about how you were I can't even talk, the release lead for the last version of WordPress that was released.
That was also by accident.
It was?
My life is a continuous series of fortunate accidents, not like Lemony Snicket that only has unfortunate accidents, or whatever is the title in English.
Yeah.
So I've been involved with the community team for a few years now, where I got to work with Josefa, because up until a couple of years ago, she was involved in the community team. And then I would say around before summer, the core team was very set in changing how they do releases in terms of the procedure, but also who are the people doing these releases, for a number of reasons that we cannot get into them for 2 minutes. But I'm sure that if you had Josefa on board, or if you want to get her again, she will be more than happy to go into details. But anyway, so we know that diversity is good for everyone, and core team wanted to do a bit more. So as always, I was like, they reached out to team reps and they were like, can you please let your team know, because I'm the team rep for the community team, can you please let the team know that we're looking for a more diverse pool of people? I was like, sure. And then no one was raising their hand, and I was like, maybe I can do it. Yeah, so I said, okay, I can do a minor release. Let me know if you need any help. And, months go on and I don't hear anything. And every time they talk about this, I'm like, I'm still here, available if you need someone to do a minor. And so, and then one day Josefa pings me and she's like, so about that release, it's going to be a major, but it's a great team. And I'm like, sure, why not? And that's how I got to be the release lead.
That's wonderful.
WordPress 5.3, but the reason is that it was a big team, and there was and there will be a lot of support. So it's really an amazing experience, because you get to work with amazing people, you get to learn so much. There are no stupid questions, and so it's an amazing experience, and it's a lot easier because of all this amazing support that people might think it is. people were like, oh, you worked so hard. And I was like, no, because everyone is so freaking good at what they do that you just need to remind them that there's a deadline coming up.
I'm sure your Slack was going crazy though.
No, because
really?
honestly, everyone knows what they're doing.
That's wonderful.
And everyone is willing to learn. Everyone is willing to do what needs to be done and learn what needs to be learned. So honestly, I just had to, just sometimes nudge people to remember to do that, or put together the agenda, or do more of this admin work. But obviously I offered my sympathetic ear to whomever wanted to come to me. But because we also made all of this very public, and we tried to make the chats a little bit, I don't want to say more fun, because I don't know how they were before I came on board. Maybe the life of the party, and I just ruined them and made them horrible. So I really tried to, and this is something that I learned in the community team, being very welcoming of new people and new faces, and nurturing that kind of vibe that we have in the community team. And so that's how it went. But honestly, I didn't work so hard like people think I did.
You were just the face of the team.
I am the pretty face of the. No, I am the shouty lady. I am.
I love it.
I'm the mom jokes and self-deprecation, but also let's do this.
Right. That's great. So I just wrote an article. It's not published yet. For Advanced WP, the blog on Advanced WP, about how contributor days how they actually advance WordPress, how contributor days, WordCamps, and meetups all work towards advancing WordPress. And I wanted to go to the latest release and do a screenshot of all the people that were involved. Only you can't do a screenshot because it's too big. So I had to do an animated GIF that just scrolls and scrolls and scrolls to show all the people that were involved.
It was a wonderful, really good release, and I hope we'll keep up with the momentum and having a lot of people involved. I say we because I enjoy shouting at the core people now. So if they will allow me,
shouty lady,
being involved somehow. I don't know yet how, because I mean I use the here very liberally and generously. So
good for you. That's wonderful. I love it. That's fantastic. That's my favorite command, is @ here or @ channel.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I use that quite a lot.
Before I move in, one more question about in general. So Josefa has made very public that she would like to have a release team of all women. And how do you feel about that?
I would love it. I am. I'm all in for that.
Now, I'm not a developer, but I want to be part of it too. And that's what I said. Count me in for whatever I can do.
That's the beauty. You don't need to be.
Right.
I cannot code for my life.
I can shout. I know how to shout. I can help.
Perfect. That's a perfect skill.
I could be the deputy shouty lady.
There's a lot of work involved in the release that it's actually not about the code.
Yeah.
Obviously, there is a lot of code, but the role that I had, there's no code involved. Documentation, I would say. So there is no code involved. There is a lot of willing to get to understand what you're writing about.
Okay.
Because you have to write the dev notes and all these kind of things, and it might seem obviously it is more difficult for someone that it's not technical at that level, but some help is also appreciated in that department. Design, accessibility, testing. Oh my gosh.
Lots of testing.
Testing is so underrated and definitely needed. So that would be also something. So,
and I know we have enough women who know all those roles to do an all-women release. So it will be fun. I hope it happens.
I really hope it's going to happen.
Me too. Okay, now I'm going to ask you my last set of questions. They can be kind of fun sometimes.
Yes.
Okay, so what are 2 or 3 must-have plugins that you would recommend to somebody building a website?
First of all, SG Optimizer. And I'm not saying this to sell you on SiteGround, but yes, but it's an amazing plugin that takes care of so many things that are around optimization in one plugin. So image optimization, minification, lazy loading, scripts, whatever. You don't need to have 25 different plugins to do that. You need the SG Optimizer. Of course, you need to be a happy SiteGround customer to use. The other one that I know a lot of people say, no, that's too heavy, it's Jetpack. Mm-hmm. And also for the same reason, because in one plugin, you have so many different options and you don't need to activate all the modules, only the ones you need. But the thing is that you only have one plugin. If something needs to be updated, instead of having, again, 10 plugins, one for the comment, one for the contact form, one for the social media icons, one for whatever Jetpack does, and it does a lot of things, then you only get to update one plugin and get all the new amazing features. And it slows down the website if you activate probably all of the modules at the same time. But that will happen also if you activate 40 different plugins. So
true, very true.
If you're having a blog, definitely SEO by Yoast. Mm-hmm. But caveat, do your research in terms of don't be scared by the red light. So instead of seeing the red light and be like, oh, I don't want to use this again, because just educate yourself on that and it's gonna be fine.
It's a guide, it isn't a law.
Yeah, these are my 3 top.
Those are perfect. I love that. And I use all of those myself. So there you go. Did you have a mentor at any point of your WordPress journey, whether it was official or not, and who was it?
Definitely. It is, and it will forever be Andrea Middleton.
She's wonderful.
Yeah, I want to be her when I grow up.
She seems to really have a really great outlook on life. I love her a lot, so that's wonderful. Who is somebody, besides Andrea, who is somebody that you admire in the WordPress community, and why?
Tammy Lister, who's the design team rep. She's a designer working at Automatic. And she represents, for me, the power of quiet and the power of knowledge. She knows her stuff.
She does.
And she is patient. She's quiet. She takes the time to explain everything. And she is someone that I admire.
One of the other things I really like about her is she, for lack of a better term, she likes to stay in her lane. So she will offer advice, but she doesn't try to take over other people's things and do too much. She knows what she's good at and she continues forward in that way. And I think that's really admirable. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, she's great.
She really is. What's something you would like to learn in WordPress that you haven't learned yet?
Subversion control, SVN. I have no idea how that works.
Me either. Okay, maybe we'll teach each other this year. We'll learn something and share. What's one of the
understanding what it does would be a great step forward.
Yeah, for sure. I took a class in GitHub once just to understand what it was. I have one Git anything out there, and it's a shopping list because they taught us how to do a shopping list.
Yeah.
And that, like if you visit my GitHub account, that's all you're going to see is that. But that's my only understanding of versioning is that. But I'm sure that it's a little more complex than that.
I wouldn't know.
I'm just assuming so. I'm assuming so. What's one of the biggest WordPress mistakes you've ever made, and what did you learn from it? Maybe it was making changes to core.
No. Actually, I wasn't allowed to touch anything.
No, I mean when you were doing your
Yes,
change of the
yes.
CSS
No,
changes.
honestly, the biggest mistake was taking on the e-commerce
Mm,
project that I couldn't deliver, because that ruined 6 months of my life.
yeah.
Honestly, I'm not
I
joking.
No, I believe it. I believe it. I really do.
Yeah.
What's your proudest WordPress moment?
Well, obviously the release is quite up there,
I was kind of curious what you were going to say about that.
but and that's where the bragging comes in. I
Yeah.
am very proud of a lot of things I managed to do in the past 4 years, because contributing to WordPress really allowed me to become the person that I wanted to be,
Hmm.
and didn't know how to.
Yeah.
Also because, well, Italy is incredibly sexist, and if you're a mother, that's it.
Mm,
You forget a career, and obviously English is not my first language, so all of this glitz and glamour of
mhm.
working for international companies on software was like, I'll never get there. So I think there's a lot of, so obviously the release is a very very
It's a big
important
one. Yeah.
moment in my not only WordPress life, but life in general. Organizing that first contributor day, I am very proud of it, because I see every day the results that came out of that.
Hmm.
I'm very proud of speaking on stage.
Hmm.
It's something that I don't enjoy, and yet I do it because I think
Yeah.
that representation really matters. So
Hmm.
I really hope every time I step on that stage that someone whose first language is not English, who's a woman, or something that is not a white 30-something gender man
Yeah.
developer, the norm, will
Yeah.
just decide to do it. And
Hmm.
so this summer I gave a talk at Work in Europe about networking, and it was kind of spur of a moment. I asked people to introduce each other for a
Hmm.
minute, and I had 800 people talking to each other, and that was a very,
That's amazing.
very emotional.
I got goosebumps.
No, it was very emotional. It was
Yeah.
so I am proud when I push myself out of my comfort zone, because I
Hmm.
hope someone else will do it as well.
That's wonderful. I like that. That's very good. And it's a good way to be a leader. So somebody who thinks the way you do is definitely natural born leader. So that's wonderful.
Thanks.
If you weren't working in your current career in web design and web anything, what's
Mhm.
another career that you might like to try?
I really liked being an executive assistant, because I got to I get to shout at people. So shouting at people is like a constant in my life. I love it. Um, I really loved being an executive assistant. That was a job that I loved. And honestly, if I didn't find WordPress in my life, probably I would have continued to do that, and try to go forward with that. That was something that I really liked.
That's awesome. What's something on your bucket list?
How much time do we have?
You have to pick just one or two.
Oh dear. How do I do that? Take my kid and my dad to New York.
Oh, nice. I live in New York. You could come visit us.
Because my dad took me there when I was 16 after a
Hmm.
very rough year in high school, and it was a lot of fun.
Hmm.
And he's now 73 and he wants to go back to New York, and so that's definitely very high in my list.
Hmm.
And learn Japanese, which I've been trying to do for a year with no success.
Yeah, I've been trying to learn Spanish, and I'm not very good at it either. It's not easy. But you're very good at English, so I think your ability to master languages must be pretty good.
The
Um,
Japanese.
Japanese is entirely different, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So show us or tell us about a hidden talent that you have that people in WordPress might not know about you.
I present you my knitting.
I love it. And green is my favorite color. So is it
So
transitioning into purple?
yes, I'm gonna show you the yarn because it's
Okay.
really beautiful.
Oh,
It's
that's
a
lovely.
Estonian yarn.
Nice.
that transitions into color. So this is actually a very simple pattern,
Uh-huh.
but I really like knitting very intricate lace motifs, but then I give them away as presents. So right now I just have this very simple one on my
That's
knit.
beautiful. I was at WordCamp Hamilton 2 years ago, and I gave a talk. I don't even remember what the talk was right now off the top of my head. And there was a woman in the audience, and I know, it was on how to be a WordPress superhero. And so I had my Wonder Woman glasses on, and I used Wonder Woman throughout, not Wonder Woman because I didn't want to break, laws, but I used the Wonder Woman idea, the motif of a superhero, throughout the whole presentation. And afterwards she came up to me, and she was knitting the whole time, and I know knitters like to keep their hands busy.
Yes.
And she showed me a pattern on her phone for a shawl that's got the Wonder Woman pattern and colors in it. It's beautiful. And she says, you need to get somebody to knit this for you. I said, oh, that's wonderful. So I posted on Facebook, if anybody is a knitter and wants to knit, I'll pay you to do this. Well, nobody did, and I forgot about it over time. So this year I was the keynote speaker for WordCamp Niagara. So I had given my talk, I sat down, she came up behind me, she came in right before the next talk, she says, did anybody make you that scarf yet? Or that shawl yet? I said, oh no. She says, okay, well, we'll talk afterwards. I said, yeah, because tell me, I'll hire you to do it. So after the talk, she comes up to me and she says, I said, well, how much would you charge me to make that shawl? And she said, all I would want is to know that you would take some pictures in it for me. I said, no, I have to value your time. I want to pay you for it. She said, just promise me pictures. I said, okay, I promise you pictures. She said, okay, here it is. And she'd already made it for me.
That's fantastic.
It's wonderful. I have a picture somewhere in my Twitter account. I'll send it to you later so you can see it.
Yes.
It's just beautiful.
I think people that like to knit and they don't do that as a profession will never charge you for that, because it's so time consuming that if you have to put a price on that, it would be in the thousands.
Yeah, but I'm like, I could at least pay for the yarn.
No, because if we don't get people to give our things to, like, I cannot wear 25 stars, right? True.
Well,
that's fantastic.
It was a beautiful story.
That's a very much knitter person, passionate person right there.
Well, it made me very happy. And every time it's actually in the office, but it's not within reach right now, or I would show it to you. But so when I'm cold, I wrap it around me, and I don't just feel warm, I feel the love. So it's a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful thing. It is. So how do people find your business? How do people find you, on Twitter, on your website, all of these different places? How do we find Francesca?
On Twitter. That's my place. Francesca Marano. I'm not going to spell it because it's very complicated, but I'm sure you can add a link to it.
We are.
And I'm not very active in the blogging, so I would say the Twitter account is where you can find me. And SiteGround is where you can find me. Sometimes I do write on the blog, not very often. But yeah, Twitter is my place. Twitter is my happy place, and also the place where I can go and scream into the void. So it's amazing.
It's wonderful. I love Twitter. I think that Twitter is where WordPress lives. A lot of, if Slack, yes, but then to the wider community on Twitter. And I decided this week that every Wednesday, I had the idea on Monday that every Wednesday I was going to tweet, post your job links below. Did you see that? Yeah. So that was yesterday, and almost 40 times that's been shared, and people have been posting links. So every Wednesday I'm going to do that to try to help the community. I have a job. I don't need a job, so it isn't for me.
That's fantastic. So I have a question for you now. How did you find the job at Give WP?
So that's a great question. I was actually speaking in Ottawa, and they were sponsoring the camp in Ottawa. And so I went up to them and I said, oh, Give, I heard you speak in Pittsburgh a few years ago when I was there. I said, and I started using Give on a website, and I showed them the website, and they said, oh, can we talk to you about the website and do a blog post about the website that you built? And I said, sure. So the next day I was sitting down and I was talking to them, and they were interviewing me for the blog. And at the end, I shook Jason Cannell's hand and I said, if you're ever hiring, yours is the company that I would consider leaving my freelancing job to join. And a few weeks later, he contacted me and he said, we're starting this new position for customer success, and we want you to head up the team. So
that's fantastic. That's
it was
fantastic.
great. Yeah. So
That is also very much, I think, how the community works.
I agree.
So I saw your tweet and I love it because I found my job at SiteGround through the post status job board.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there are so many opportunities around us, and I love that you're highlighting them because
Thank you.
hopefully other women like us can get
Mm-hmm.
a career later, let's say,
Yes.
in their life, and through this
So,
wonderful, crazy thing called
mhm.
WordPress.
So I have something else to tell you before I let you go, and that is when I think of what my proudest WordPress moments are, I have many, as you do, right? So getting the job at Give and speaking my first time and all those things. But recently, two things happened that made me, or three things I should say, happened that made me very happy. One was I was part of the WP and Up Summit this week, but they did the Do Summit Good. So I was very proud to be on a panel for that. The second was I wrote an article for WP and Up about dealing with your post-camp emotions, because
Yes.
some people have anxiety and depression and things around those, you know, and even just getting ill. And so, but that led to a mention in the post status email that went out, and that had my name, and I was like, oh, I've arrived.
I know.
But the other thing was walking into the hotel after the last day of WordCamp US, and you stopped me and said, can I be on your podcast? And I was so excited to have you.
I was so excited that you said yes. I was like, maybe she did.
So I was like, I'm like, Francesca Marano knows who I am.
Of course. You know, I think, I don't know, this is something that I have a bit of struggle with, that people think that, people think that I'm famous, but I'm not. And it's something that I have a bit of and then people think that I don't know who they are, but actually I just and this is something that I would like to do a better job at the next, not job, because it's not a job, it's a
Right.
pleasure, better at this, recognizing all the talent that is around me, because you know, I see all these things happening on Twitter, but then I'm like, you know, moving on to something else. And then I'm incredibly embarrassed when I talk to people and they assume I don't know them, and I know who they are. Like,
well, I don't assume that anybody knows who I am, because I'm just me from a
neither.
little town, right? So when somebody,
it's embarrassing when someone that I know thinks that I don't know them, and
yeah, so it's just this giant love fest, and I love it.
Yeah. So that was good. That was a good moment, right?
It was
the right moment.
the right moment at the right time. So
And
it was
I wanted
perfect.
to talk to you over the WordCamp, you know, and then everyone was so busy. It was crazy busy WordCamp US.
Yeah, it was.
I felt it was the best WordCamp US of the past 5 years.
I enjoyed it so much, and part of that was being an organizer and seeing the fruit of all of your work happen. Part of it was being on the Give team and seeing all of the things that we do there, and part of it was just watching everybody else be so successful at it. So
yeah,
it was wonderful.
It was a very good one, and I think also Open the movie, of course, I think was kind of a great way to visualize this.
Yes.
Because it's so hard to explain what we do, right?
Yeah.
Like, I have a very hard time. Like, my son is always asking me questions about WordCamps and WordPress. I'm like, how do I explain to this little dude what we're doing here?
Watch this 13-minute movie, dude.
Yes. And now that's, I think that explains a bit more what we're doing.
And I just interviewed Kathy's aunt not too long ago, so her episode isn't out yet either, but so that will be coming out soon as well. So
great.
So, well, thank you so much for being on the show today. It's been wonderful to have you, especially so late at night. I really appreciate you being with me.
I sent my kid to sleep at my mom's, so I also
perfect.
took the opportunity to have a quiet night.
See, you should have been drinking wine instead of tea.
Yeah, I know, but I didn't want to do this drunk. So I get drunk very easily because I never, ever drink. So like, I didn't want to drink.
I love it. I love it.
Maybe next time. Next
Next
time
time.
we do this drunk. This
We'll
time
do it. We'll both drink wine and we'll have
yes, yes,
we'll have different fun.
yes. I agree. This time it was a good breaking the ice with this.
Exactly. With our tea. That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much. We'll say goodbye to Coffee Talk Land, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you, Francesca, for being here.
Thank you.
Bye.